When you sent your kids back to school, were bathrooms at the top of your list of concerns? We'll tell you why legislators are discussing the issue coming up. Plus, a group of leaders throughout eastern Kentucky converge on hazard to discuss economic development, how the ideas might benefit you.
And we're having a beautiful evening across portions of eastern Kentucky tonight. I'll have the evening forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Mountain News, first at 4, continues.
School restroom issues were debated at the state capitol today. A lot of what was discussed in an interim education committee centered around a new restroom design at a Fayette County middle school. There were questions raised on if the restrooms are gender neutral or are simply designed to deal with discipline problems. WYMT's Phil Pendleton takes a closer look from Frankfort.
This debate started when a representative said that some parents in Lexington have contacted him concerned about the new restroom design at Britton Middle School, which is supposed to open in the fall of next year, which will have enclosed stalls, but also a common area.
This design.
Representative Matt Lockett says many parents came to him concerned about the gender-neutral open concept restrooms being built at the Mary Britton Middle School. Sinks and mirrors would be shared and in open areas. Each stall would be enclosed.
These stalls can be seen from the hall. And while we tried to get a bill passed, we simply just ran out of time. And since then, construction has continued on the school and on these restrooms that are unsafe.
Lockett says he believes having restrooms in open areas will increase the harm, injury, and emotional trauma on students, especially girls. But Fayette County's superintendent says the restrooms are not gender neutral and says they are a solution to problems seen in restrooms today, mostly in discipline issues.
They are simply for privacy purposes and they are for supervision purposes.
Superintendent Ligon says that 10 years ago, the biggest concern among students in schools was simply about guns. Now, he says, it's about what takes place in restrooms. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
Fayette County school officials say the restroom design at Britton is being used all across the country. A new immigration policy just took effect. The federal government is accepting applications for a sped-up path to permanent residency. It's for undocumented people who've been in the U.S. for at least 10 years and are married to U.S. citizens. Lexington immigration attorney Heather Hottie says getting accepted could lead to a green card in just more than 1 year. The normal wait time is 5 to 7 years.
A lot of people think that we don't have that many immigrants or undocumented immigrants, but we really do when you consider agriculture, when you consider the horse industry. So we have a lot of people we're trying to get this message out to who are married to U.S. citizens and they've kind of given up hope.
Hottie says at her office alone, 2,500 clients may qualify. She invites anyone interested in the program to reach out. Since the 1990s, veterans and active service members began receiving notifications about exposure to the toxic water at Camp Leun. Camp Leun is a Marine Corps base in Jackson, North Carolina. In 2022, with the help of advocates like Eastern Kentucky native Brian Ambergy, the Camp Leun Justice Act was passed. The law allows for service members impacted by the toxic water to apply for relief for the harm caused by exposure.
We get out and do this, and I've lost several good friends that has passed away because of the health issues from it, and it just tears you up and real bad. I mean, it haunts you.
While the deadline for the Camp Leun Justice Act passed earlier this month, Ambergy says there are still ways to get help. We will continue with Ambergy's personal fight for justice for the victims of Camp Leun tomorrow night on Mountain News at 6. Community members who were in downtown Elizabethtown described hearing the shots ring out yesterday after police say 46-year-old Christopher Elder shot 3 people, killing 37-year-old Erica Riley and her mother, 71-year-old Janet Riley. This all happened across the street from the Hardin County Justice Center. People inside the Justice Center at the time say they heard multiple gunshots Monday morning. Madison Elliott reports.
And I heard like 5 pops, and they said active shooter.
Billy Ashley says he was at the courthouse for jury duty when he heard the shots ring out.
So we just kind of took cover and waited for the all clear.
People working in nearby offices, like Desiree Ramasamy, heard it too.
I was on the phone while my boss was like, did that sound like gunshots? As soon as I got off the phone, we both came outside through the back to see what happened. The police were already on scene.
Michael Cockrell was leaving the courthouse, but at first didn't realize what he heard.
At first, I thought it was maybe some construction on the inside of the building, like a nail gun, something going off. I just couldn't believe that it was gunshots.
Those inside the courthouse, such as Ashley and Noah Jackson, were put on lockdown.
We didn't talk about it at all because, you know, it was a courtroom. We wanted to be quiet, but the minute people were allowed to leave, they were like, what on earth is going on out here?
He and others waited outside the courthouse once they were released from lockdown because their cars were across the street in the parking lot where the shooting unfolded. A bullet ricocheted off of Jackson's car, leaving a mark. A bullet also went through Ramasamy's Honda Civic.
They said it was on the passenger side in the back, and the way he shot, it went through the trunk.
Luckily, she wasn't in the car, but instead had gone to work maybe just 30 minutes prior.
I can only imagine having to be in the parking lot and possibly even being a victim to him and his chaos this morning.
That was Madison Elliott reporting. Now, one possible aspect of the shooting was reported domestic violence. Police say the shooter was Erica Riley's boyfriend, Christopher Elder. The court records show Erica had filed for an emergency protective order against Elder, alleging a year and a half of abuse against her and her children. Officers say the Rileys and Elder were at the courthouse for a hearing in the case.
Many survivors are going to see that and be afraid they can't leave. And not sure how to leave, and so you've got to show up more than ever.
Darlene Thomas is the executive director of Greenhouse 17, an advocacy agency committed to ending intimate partner abuse. She says they have a list of resources from legal advocacy to an emergency shelter. Greenhouse 17 is one of 15 programs that are part of a statewide coalition called Zero V. They work to make sure these resources are available throughout the state. And those resources can be found at locations like Cumberland Valley Domestic Violence Services in the Cumberland Valley, the LKLP Safe House in the Kentucky River Valley, or the Turning Point Domestic Violence Service in the Big Sandy area. You can find more information about this at WYMT.com.
Well, as forecasted, we had temperatures in the 60s and 70s today, making for another fall-like day across portions of the area. Right now, we're at 71 in Harlan, 68 is the current temperature in Hazard, 67 in Pikeville, 66 in Clintwood, 63 in Wise, 10 warmer in Jonesville, as well as Middlesboro. All is quiet right now on Live Pinpoint Doppler Radar, and Live Pinpoint Doppler Radar may be able to take a vacation for the next several days because we're going to stay nice and dry with plenty of sunshine. If you have plans tonight, there's your evening planner. 74 with sunny skies by the 6 o'clock hour, upper 60s by 8 p.m., clear skies by the 10 o'clock hour, so definitely get out and enjoy this evening. Next 12 hours, though, keeps temperatures going into the 50s by the 1 o'clock time frame, mid-50s when you wake up in the morning, and that's going to be the overnight low trend. Temperatures in the 50s, some places even in the upper 40s. 46 Monticello, 48 Somerset, 46 in Williamsburg, 48 in Middlesboro, as well as Irvine and Manchester. Now, coming up in the first alert forecast, we're going to see a temperature tomorrow in the 70s, and with that, we may have to keep an eye on a record, and I'll tell you which one that is in just a few minutes. Steve.
Eric, thank you. All right, Eric, thanks. Several leaders from throughout the region met in Hazard to discuss economic development. Today, WYMT's Chandler Wilcox was at the luncheon and has a look at what they talked about.
20s Kentucky is an organization focusing on economic development since 2015. Their annual luncheon included discussions on past developments and future focuses. President Colby Kirk says one of their goals is making sites ready to build on.
There's been a few high-profile projects who have made comments that it's harder to build on some of our mountaintop removal sites. So we've made it a priority to take a lot of that geotechnical and earthwork out of the equation. So you're going to see more investments in build-ready sites at some of these existing industrial parks so that we're more competitive to win projects that are looking at other places right now.
Kirk says there's 3,000 acres of industrial sites available. Officials say 95% of jobs incentivized by state leaders since the COVID-19 pandemic have been along or west of the Interstate 75. They look to change that. In Hazard, Chandler Wilcox, WYMT Mountain News.
Officials with One East Kentucky say they are targeting those manufacturing and industrial jobs. Coming up at 6, a closer look at how they are working to bring more jobs to our region. The damage from the 2022 flood continues to weigh on the people of eastern Kentucky, and help from the outside is still trickling in. WYMT's Buddy Forbes has a look at a mission that is still working to mend.
More than 2 years after the July 2022 floods, work is still underway to get people back into homes and congregations back into churches. Martha, Mary, and Me, a northern Kentucky-based organization, has been bringing its Save His Sheep mission group to eastern Kentucky since the July 2022 flood, working to rebuild homes, repair churches, and help the community reclaim the place they call home. The mission is continuing its work in the Millstone community this week, with President Cordelia Schreiber saying she feels led to help her hometown area get back on its feet.
She called me the day after the flood and said that her mother had lost her home in the flood. And so I told my husband we have to go down there. And so we've been coming ever since. So we're 2 years in now. Those involved with the mission say the longer they are here, the more unmet needs come to light, which they say just proves they are in the right place. In Letcher County, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Hear more about the continued mission coming up at 6, or you can be part of tonight's worship service with the group at Isom Presbyterian Church at 6:30. Coming up here on First at 4, with millions of dollars on the line, take note. The Identity Theft Resource Center reports employment scams are increasing. What you need to know to protect yourself.
And the headlines for tonight: fall-like weather again for tomorrow. Rain chances are non-existent, but the heat and humidity is going to return. I'll tell you when in the First Alert forecast in a few minutes.